Time is our most scarce resource. We all have the same 24 hours in a day and the same 168 hours in a week. We don't all manage that time the same way, however. I've tried countless tips to manage my time, and today I want to talk about the 10 that I actually stick to and that I use on a day-to-day basis. Tip number 1 is more of a concept than it is a tip. It's that you actually own your time. So even though you have a manager that might be telling you what to do, at any given moment, you're doing what you chose to be doing. And that's both cool and annoying to know. So whenever you're thinking, oh, I don't have time to do X, or I didn't have time to do whatever, it's not actually true. It's just that you chose to do other things. I used to say when I was in school that I didn't have time to do my homework, but the truth was that I just chose to do other things, like playing video games or working on my new business I was trying to start. The next tip is to use to-do lists. You might think that to-do lists have nothing to do with time management, but they really do. If you're always trying to figure out what's next to do, you'll lose a ton of time. And if you know exactly what you have to do throughout your entire day, you can then prioritize all of those to-dos and really focus on one thing at a time. You can also estimate how much time they'll take, which takes me to my next tip, time blocking. I talked about time blocking in the video I made about how I manage my life, and it's a concept that I first came across in a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. It's a really good book. I really recommend it. Time blocking is pretty simple. You just take your tasks, you try to think of how much time they'll take and when you want to do them. Some people do that instead of using to-do lists. Some people do both, which is what I do. Time blocking really helps me stay focused and accountable to what I have to do. I like to plan my day either the night before or in the morning. Doing this will also help you estimate how much time any task will take you to complete. At first it might be a bit harder, but once you get used to it, you'll get a lot better at it. I know I'm more creative at night, so that's when I like to plan these videos. And I know I have a slump after lunch, so that's where I like to look at emails and do those kind of tasks that don't take too much energy. Doing more won't give you more time to work on what actually matters to you, and that's the goal of the daily highlight. So every day, choose one thing. I choose anywhere between 1 and 3 things that you really, really want to get done. And if you complete these things, that means that you had a good day. These things can be related to work. My highlights are typically related to my personal life, and they can be things like going to the gym, filming this video, and sometimes they're also about work if I have a project that I really, really want to get done today. The next one is a concept you might have came across. It's the Parkinsons Law. Parkinson's Law states that work expends to fill the time given to complete it. So basically, if you have a project, then you have a year to complete it, it'll take you a year to complete it. If you have 6 months, it'll take 6 months. And same goes for small tasks or whatever. If you have like 5 hours to do a task, it'll take 5 hours. If you have had that time, you'll do in half the time. I use this to set personal smaller timelines so that I have like smaller chunks of time to work on projects. And it also helps me to stay more focused, because if I know I have only 2 hours to do a project, I won't waste as much time on like scrolling on my phone or whatever. The next tip is to batch your tasks. Let's take laundry as an example. Do you clean every single shirt or sock right after wearing them? Of course not. That would be a huge waste of time. You just throw them all in a basket or whatever, and then at the end of the week, you clean them all together. The same can be done with your smaller, less meaningful tasks. Instead of checking emails like 5 times in a day and replying to 1 or 2, just batch like an hour after lunch, let's say, and do it all at that time. There's actually a cost to switching tasks, and even though you might think that answering a single email might take you like 30 seconds, going back to the task you were working on will be a lot harder and you'll have less focus. So that's why it's important to batch those smaller tasks together. Look, there's no easy way to say this. Your performance for last month were terrible. What are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm multitasking so I can get more done today. That explains a lot. Next tip is to stop multitasking. You might think you're really good at it, but you're actually not. A study made at Stanford University on people that thought they were really good at multitasking and made them more productive showed that it actually didn't. It usually took them a lot more time when they were switching tasks. And it also showed that you're never actually multitasking. Your brain doesn't work that way. What's actually happening is just that your brain is constantly switching from one task to another, which means that you're never actually focused on one thing. And like I said earlier, there's a cost to switching tasks. Same study showed that doing multitasking might even drop your productivity by up to 40%. Next tip is to eliminate distractions. This one is kind of hard nowadays because everything is always competing for our attention, but try to be more mindful of what's around you and try to remove the distractions. Let's say you work in a room where there's a TV or a window you're always looking at. Try to find solutions to remove those distractions. Maybe that means moving to a different room. You can try to think of the main sources of distraction in your life. For me, the number one is for sure my phone. And what I do is when I'm working, I turn off the notifications completely. And I also set it face down somewhere else than on my desk. Also be mindful of the ones that you might think are productive but aren't, like emails. You might think it's really productive to answer your emails, but it's usually just a distraction. Next tip is to build buffers. There's a law called Murphy's Law that basically says everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So try to add a bit of time when you're either commuting or whatever to have a buffer so that you're not late. And this can also be done for work. I have a 9-to-5 job, so it's pretty easy to manage, and I always have like an hour buffer after work, or if a project really needs to be done and I didn't manage to do it in the time I set for myself, I'll work during that time. And I also do that for all of my projects. I always try to add a bit more time. And if you're doing client work, this is a really good tip. Let's say you have a project and you think it'll take you a month, add like a week. So that way the client will never be disappointed because you won't ever be late, and you'll always over deliver. Now that you're fully equipped to manage your time better, make sure you have some time set up aside for yourself. Maybe you have a book you really want to read and never had time for it. Well, try to block an hour at the end of the day for that. You might have a new project you want to work on, a personal project. Just book some time off. I have a rule now with my girlfriend where after a certain hour, we close all of our devices, so we don't look at anything work related, don't look at our phones, nothing. And we've been having way better evenings since we've been doing that. This is actually a tip I talked about in this video that I made on 10 tips to live a better life. Check it out and have a good day.